Thanks for coming back. This is Talking Politics in Western Pennsylvania. I'm Bill Merrell, the host. Unlike other programs, this is a 10-part series on the Biden-Harris administration. We just finished the first of two looking at Bidenomics. And this part, 6, is in fact Bidenomics Continue Failures. About 30% of Americans cited the economy as the most important problem facing our country today. Although it's worth noting that immigration is now climbing fast on that chart, and this was as of March, okay? And you see the confidence in the country, the economic condition, since Biden has taken office, especially during the period where 9% interest rates and things were, was at an all-time low. All right. It hadn't been that way since, well, early in the late 60s. Why are we gambling with America's future? Asks the New York Times. So this isn't just some right-wing rag. This is the New York Times, and they're asking, why are we doing what we're doing? All right. Pretty soon you're staring at Ferguson's Law. This is the principle enunciated by the historian Niall Ferguson, that any nation that spends more on interest payments on the debt than on the military spending will slip into decline. It happened to Habsburg, Spain, the Ottoman Empire, the British Empire, pre-revolutionary France, and is now happening to the U.S. And take a look at that. The annual interest payments of the federal government recently topped $1 trillion. Now that blue line there in defense spending, we're spending less than $900 billion on everything. That includes buying new ships, aircraft, every person in the Department of Defense, every soldier, sailor, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, etc. All right? And we're spending now more on our national debt than we are, in fact, on all of our defense. We have over 740 military installations throughout the world, all right? And we're spending more on our interest rate. That's like taking a credit card, maxing it out, and only paying the interest, never touching the principal, all right? And that's the problem that we're having today. It's unsustainable, and I'm not the only one who says that. Let's listen to what the Fed chairman says.
How do you assess the national debt?
We mostly try very hard not to comment on fiscal policy and instruct Congress on how to do their job when actually they have oversight over us.
But is the national debt a danger to the economy, in your view?
In the long run, the U.S. is on an unsustainable fiscal path. The U.S. federal government's on an unsustainable fiscal path, and that just means that the debt is growing faster than the economy.
I have the sense this worries you very much.
Over the long run, of course it does. We're borrowing from future generations. It's time for us to get back to putting a priority on fiscal sustainability, and sooner is better than later.
Right now, according to the New York Times, in June, the U.S. debt is on pace to top $56 trillion over the next 10 years. That is so unsustainable that it is frightening, because of the fact that when we look at the program, when we looked at the program earlier, we saw that 8 of the nations of the BRICS, the people that are breaking away from using the dollar, own almost 85% of our national debt. What happens if they call it? We have no sustainability whatsoever if, in fact, these countries, including China, Russia, and which all own part of our national debt, because in the past they had to use their gold and things to buy our debt so we could give them dollars, so they could buy oil, because that's what the world did. And after Biden screwed that mess up, messing up the petrodollar system, and Saudi Arabia disenfranchising franchising that agreement, all of a sudden now we're stuck. And with the interest rates going up, and the dollar value being devalued as it will be soon. I'm sorry to say that. Because of the fact that we don't have the prestige worldwide that we used to. I've traveled all over the world. I was in the military for 20 years. I've been name it, I've been there. And I could always take $1 in and buy something because people wanted that because that was a sustainable currency. Now, there's like 48 additional countries looking to join the BRICS to get away from the dollar. And this administration caused that. The Congressional Budget Office said on Tuesday, once again, that the national debt is poised to top $56 trillion. The average salaries in the U.S. today, according to the USA Today, as you see there, the national average is just a little bit under $60,000. The income by state in Pennsylvania is a decent average at $66,000. It's a little bit higher, partly because we have unions. For example, our teachers. I made substantially more in my first year teaching in Pennsylvania than my stepdaughter did in fact, 27 years teaching in Florida. I made almost twice as much as she did. So, I mean, like I said, this is part of the reason why we have a little higher income here on an average. The average household income, as you see, in 2022 is $74,755. President Joe Biden promised to lower housing costs during his State of the Union earlier this spring. To date, his plan has been an utter failure. We will look at the promise and see how they, Biden and Harris, because she's been promising lowering houses, but see what she's failed to do in the last 3.5 years. Looking at buying a home in our area under Biden-Harris. And our premises here, a $400,000 house, which is higher than the national average, but for around here, it's okay. Total taxes, $6,700. Insurance for that property here, $1,800. Not like in Florida, where some of those homeowners are paying $18,000 because of the hurricanes and things that are happening down there. Under a 30-year term, with an HOA of $45 per month, with excellent credit, from 760 to 850. So these prices are at the lowest possible. 10% down, and you need FHA insurance. Okay, somebody would say, how do you know that? Well, I used to be a real estate broker. I sold. I taught real estate sales and finance for a community college, and I also was the regional instructor for Century 21. So let's look at this in the real terms of today. Mortgage payments under Donald Trump at 2.5%. The interest, once again, the property tax, I broke that down by 1/12. Homeowner insurance, 1/12. HOA, $45 a month. Mortgage insurance that you pay on the FHA loan. The total payment is $2,344 per month, which means on a 4-to-1 ratio. I mean, if here's your payment, and then you have to have 4 times that payment to meet the requirement for most banks. So, on a monthly income of $9,376, or a yearly income of just $112,512, a yearly income. And this is for the family. Now let's see what happened under Biden. Monthly mortgage payment now under Biden, and notice that this payment has dropped from the 7.5. This is now 6.36 according to the First Federal Bank. All right, principal and interest, well, that went up. Property taxes and everything stayed the same. Your monthly payment would be now $3,164 per month to buy the same house, or a yearly income of $151,872. You would need almost $40,000 more to buy that same house now than you needed under Trump. So when you see these people saying how they're going to lower all these things, they haven't done anything for 4 years, you have to take it in questions, start asking intelligent questions. Okay, this is the really sad part of this whole thing. According to Harris, the American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable.
look, we don't have enough housing in America. We have a housing supply shortage. And what that means, in particular for so many younger Americans, the American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable.
See, what's sad about this is the fact that we never had a housing problem before. But when you let 10 million people flood into the country, that's going to cause an issue. Okay, and this is really sad because this just came up yesterday. In August, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that 438,000 full-time jobs were lost, while 527 part-time positions were created. Now that sounds like, well, that's in balance. There's almost 100,000 part-time jobs, more part-time jobs being made. The problem is, and Trump here has it right, he has been outspoken in his criticism, causing the loss of full-time jobs a disaster for the American worker. He noted that the part-time jobs typically offer fewer benefits, lower pay, leaving families struggling to make ends meet. The administration is turning the U.S. labor market into a temporary agency, Trump said, pointing to the shift as evidence of economic mismanagement. And most people, adults, will tell you that most part-time jobs don't offer benefits. It's very, very elusive to have a part-time job because, once again, that's the expense. One of the reasons why these companies are getting rid of their full-time people are because, one, people don't want to seem to work anymore, especially for 8 hours. Two, that in fact they have the opportunity to save money if they fill their part-time positions with, or their full-time positions with part-time people doing similar or the same jobs. So it's a sad status of affairs that we've lost 500,000 people. Now, once again, we'll see that we really lost almost 1 million, 800,000 plus, by the sleight of hand that this administration has done. We'll see that in a little bit. The new report. If everything is working so well under Bidenomics, why are we having this issue? This is from the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. Overall, you see there, 1 in 8 individuals are food insecure. That's a 25% increase from last year. If everything's going so great under this administration, why is this happening? Children, 1 in 6. I never realized that in our area because I taught in a different school district, and in fact, it became relevant to me that in fact there were students in my classroom that didn't have the funds to buy the lunches and didn't have the ability to get in there early to get their breakfast. I tried to help out with that where I could, but the bottom line, I never knew it was that prevalent. Okay, but you see here in the black neighborhoods, 1 in 3, a 32% increase in the cost of, or the food insecurity, and this is the 10 counties around Allegheny County included. The Hispanic neighborhood, 1 in 5. All right, the white neighborhood, 30% increase, 1 in 10 are food insecure. I don't know how Bidenomics says that everything's going fine with everybody, and then we should look to Harris to change all of this, because 3.5 years they haven't done anything. Harris's economic plan, a $25,000 bribe for first-time home buyers. In 2008, was it 2008? Well, the last time that the market crashed, I had a house down in Virginia, and I was talking to a banker down there, and he informed me that part of the problem was under Clinton. They, in fact, tried to bring more people that didn't have the financial capability into buying homes. And that's what they did. They, in fact, allowed people that didn't have the total income on that 4-to-1 ratio that I was talking about. Maybe they had a 2.5-to-1 ratio. But the people seemed, they had a good job and everything else, so they let them purchase a house. Well, whenever the market started crashing, those people went under. For example, I have a friend who is a real estate broker in Houston, Texas. She covers, I think she said 27 zip codes in her office. And in the first 2 months of that crash, she had almost 2,000 foreclosures that she had that flooded the market. They just didn't have it. And this is the same thing now. Once again, talking about the part-time jobs coming up and the 10,000 or 10 million immigrants that rushed across our border. Now she wants to give 25,000. California is now looking to give 150,000 to immigrants to buy their first house. The citizens don't get that benefit. Immigrants do. All right, but California, I've written them off. I used to live in San Bernardino. I've written those people off a long time ago. But here it is. She's trying to, and everybody says it's a stupid move. All right, this is just not coming from me. Trying to buy your way whenever the economy is maxed out with interest rates, whenever the interest rate is just starting to come down. And today is a day that they're looking at the Fed to lower the interest rate 0.25% or 0.25%. And they're considering that a big thing because it hasn't happened in years. All right. So, I mean, like I said, there's a whole lot of things going on here. And all we're going to see if we keep this administration going is the fact that this is just going to continue. How much do grocery stores make? Harris is screaming and hollering that what she's going to do is, in fact, stop these gouging of people. Well, you know, when you look at it realistically, they're not gouging anybody. And there's probably some companies that are making a bigger profit than what we're talking about here. But as mentioned earlier, and this is put up by Toast Magazine, as mentioned earlier, however, grocery stores typically see a profit margin between 1 and 3%. This means that after accounting all expenses, including cost of goods, business rentals, and everything else, they're getting 1 to 3%. And I dare any other business to stay open with that kind of percentage of a profit. It doesn't happen. It doesn't. If you're going to invest $5 million to make $50,000, stick your money in the bank, shut up, and go on a vacation. Okay, because it's absolutely ridiculous that there's a price gouging going on universally across this country when it comes to food. It doesn't happen that way. Now, here's the Washington Post attacking Harris's plan. Slams Harris' economic strategy, a communist comparison you can't ignore. Now, as you saw in one of our earlier slides, was her card-carrying communist membership? Was that true? And did she just are those the ideas that she is in fact sticking with? Not capitalism, but communism. But anyhow, if you look at this, at best, this would lead to shortages, black markets, hoarding, among other distortions. All right, and once again, this is the Washington Post. This isn't, Fox News or something like that. Inflation has gone up every month of the Biden presidency and just hit another 40-year high. Okay, and this is from the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis, who always seems to be heading in a different direction than this administration. Okay, Gallagher's office shared a link to an April 10, 2022 article from NBC News, which noted that inflation has risen every month since Biden took office. You have to wonder, when you're watching the news and all these commercials today about this soon to be, after the coup, what this person's planning, it sounds like none of this stuff had ever happened. The U.S. economy is the biggest concern under Biden. Okay, and more people are concerned about the economy and immigration than anything else. A not good, very bad, horrible jobs report. And this was September 6th, so this is not something that went years ago. The 3-month average is now at tepid 116,000, and that's a far cry from the 202 monthly average we saw last year. So the employment is nowhere near what it was, and because they had to adjust that 800,000, which I think I'm going to be bringing up here pretty soon, it was all a lie. Okay, and this is something that everybody should be paying attention to. We have been misled by our own government, and which is really sad. What's more, a prior month's private sector figure was revised down from the lukewarm 97,000 to a chilly 74,000. Now, once again, understand that most of these employment figures that you have seen are government employees being added. The private industry hasn't been adding what they've been telling us is the overall picture. That brings the 3-month average down to just 39,100, one of the weakest 3-month periods outside recessions and unemployment contradiction recorded in data going back to 1990. Now, if we're spending more, then we're saving less. As you saw during the Trump years there, that spiked right before we had the pandemic. Okay, then Biden took office, and look what happened. It went up and up, and then all of a sudden it dropped whenever his prices start hitting the market, and they were going to be long term. Everybody can put up something for a while. But now, 2024, we have one of the lowest savings rates that we have had in the last 8, 10, 20 years.
President Joe Biden says millions of Americans have returned to work since he took office, but our partners at PolitiFact found a problem with the numbers in one of his tweets. Our Paul Spade checks that claim.
How much has unemployment dropped since Joe Biden became president? Well, his Twitter account says 2 years ago, 18 million people were unemployed, and today that number is 1.6 million, the lowest in decades. Now, is this right? Well, not according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Their numbers show about 10 million people unemployed in January 2021, that red bar, and that's obviously not 18 million. And for December, they showed more than 5 million people unemployed, obviously not 1.6 million. What if we looked at people who filed claims for unemployment insurance? Some people lose their jobs but don't actually seek out these benefits because they don't qualify. By this measure, Biden's more recent number is on track, but his number from 2 years ago is still off. He said 18 million people were out of work in January 2021. You can see that little red bar, but it turns out the real number is closer to 4.8 million. The White House told us their numbers are higher because they were also counting claims filed under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, which you can see in this bar here in blue. Those claims are not typically included in the regular unemployment claims data, and altogether they do come close to what Biden said in his tweet. That's why the Truthometer rates it half true. You can read the full explanation at WRAL.com.
Okay, once again, looking at the future, which looks rather dim right now. In August 22, Harris was the deciding vote to add 87,000 new IRS agents and also to tax the tips on workers. Now, all of a sudden, in August of 2024, no tax on tips. Of course, she's now taking benefit for the wall. She's taking, benefit for almost everything now. While she's screaming about no taxes, the California Democrats kill the GOP bid to exempt taxes on tips in California. All right, which it seems counterproductive. One group is pushing, but then in California, where they just raised the fry guy's salary to over $42,000 for just showing up and doing, making fries. Now, if any of those people get tips, California is still going to tax it. It's like I said, it's all smoke and mirrors. Everything we're hearing from the government, everything, the people that are doing these stupid things aren't really doing anything. U.S. economy added 818,000 fewer jobs than first reported in the year that ended in March. Once again, it's smoke and mirrors, folks. They keep on telling us they're doing one thing, when over here on the left-hand side, it's something totally different. I worked for the Veterans Administration. I worked for the Social Security when I first got out of the military the first time, and it's just looking at the government today, I don't know what can be trusted. It's just really sad. Americans are racking up record credit card debt like never before, okay? And once again, you saw under Trump, it was crashing. It was crashing. And then Biden took office. And then it went off, skyrocketing, because no one could afford their monthly stuff, so they started charging it and then starting having the debt, paying the interest that went from, I might say, 12% to, in some cases, 28% on those credit cards. And that's because the Fed is charging like 4.5%. I don't know how that mathematically equates, but I know that they are making a killing, talking about the banks and lending institutions. Biden's numbers, January 24. Inflation spiked to the highest level in over 40 years. The real weekly earnings declined by 3.4%. The trade deficit for goods and services is 20.9% higher than whenever he took office. Public debt is now more than $35.3 trillion as of 2 days ago. The public debt is now almost 25% higher than it was when Biden took office. According to Money Watch, Americans need $11,400 today just to meet their basics. Need that more than what they were making. Let me put it that way. The typical American household must spend an additional $11,434 annually just to maintain the same standard of living they enjoyed in January 2021. Right before inflation soared to 40-year high, according to the recent analysis of government data. That sort of says it all.
Kamala's agenda of top-down federal control and regulation, it does not stop with their crazy profit ceilings for food companies or job-killing climate rules. She also likes the idea of government intervention in setting salaries. Yeah, of course, her extreme socialist views, they're always cloaked, though, in the noblest of intentions.
To give positive encouragement and also to create some kind of accountability, for every 1% differential between what they are paying men and women for equal work, there will be a fine of 1% of their previous year's profits. That'll get their attention.
Joining us now to unpack her real agenda, Victor Davis Hanson, Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution. All right, Victor, I love that. And Kamala in shirt sleeves. It doesn't look like the pantsuit was kind of, I guess that hadn't developed yet. So how would government decide what equal work actually looks like?
They can't decide, and they know they can't decide, and they won't decide. They'll just arbitrarily go in and threaten a particular entity that they don't like. And we know that this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, plays favorites. So what it's designed to do, Laura, is to send the fear of God into private enterprise, and the way the DOJ's done it with other people. And that, everybody deserves, I guess, one slip or one pass, but this comes on the heels of her clips where she said she wanted to force people to sell their weapons that they have purchased back to the government. And now there's just another tape as well that she bragged that she was going to force the pharmaceutical companies, the drug companies, to surrender their patents if they don't follow.
Yeah, let's play it, Victor,
that's
so
even
people
worse.
know. So people know what you're talking about. Let's watch.
For any drug where they fail to play by our rules, and if that drug came about because of federal funding for what's called R&D, research and development, I will snatch their patent so that we will take over. And yes, we can do that. Yes. Question is, do you have the will to do it? I have the will to do it.
So says a woman who's never made a payroll in her life.
Okay, we're about to run to the end of the program, but I need to bring this one thing up here because I know that many of the younger folks do follow these folks.
My entire For You page right now is presidential stuff and the campaigns being AI and what to believe and what not to believe. Just the other day, I received an email for a paid promotion, paid, for me to make a video and post it on TikTok talking about the Democratic side. At the end of this email, it says, if you want to get things going, we'll send over an NDA for you to sign, and we'll get started. I know a lot of people get their views and their opinions and their beliefs based off of what their favorite influencers are saying. Just know, they might have been paid to say the things they're saying.
I'd like to thank you very much for coming. The NDA is a non-disclosure agreement, okay? So if they took the money, they can't tell you how they took the money or why they took the money. But the bottom line is, thank you very much. We have still a few more programs to come up on talking politics in Western Pennsylvania and dealing with the Biden-Harris administration. Thank you. We'll see you next time.